Hello Linux fans, Rob here. Welcome to Linux Quest. As always, thank you for watching. Today we're going to take a look at Kubuntu 17.04 Zesty Zappos. Now this was released a few weeks ago, and it's been quite some time since I've actually run Kubuntu, so I'm kind of excited to see what's new here. Also, I had a viewer request to take a look at it. Now, there was a time when Kubuntu kind of lost my attention because KDE Neon came on the scene, offering a more bleeding edge version, or the latest version, if you will, of KDE Plasma and their desktop environment. So I kind of moved away from Kubuntu. Also, I had some issues the last time that I installed Kubuntu, and some of those may have been attributed to kind of the quick release cycle of the KDE desktop at the time. Nevertheless, I kind of moved on to Neon, and it seemed like Neon had the edge for quite some time as far as incorporating the latest releases of the KDE desktop, because that's kind of what KDE Neon was intended for, was kind of to be bleeding edge. That gap has closed some now because we're looking at Kubuntu with a kernel base of 4.10, but more importantly, a much more current KDE Plasma desktop at 5.9.4. So that's just behind the 5.9.5 release. And there's not a big difference there. You're not going to notice anything in way of major UI differences or anything. That .4 to .5 release was a lot of bug fixes primarily. All right, but we're also looking at revamped or updated KDE applications. Now we're looking at 16.12.3. Now there's more here as well, with updated versions of Qt and two major packages like Krita, Kdenlive, Firefox, and LibreOffice. We're going to see updates and stability improvements really all around. So I've got this running virtually, and I want to jump in and take a look, and we'll talk about some of the things that are set up and pre-installed that you will not find in KDE Neon, and we'll also take a look at some other things that are new within Kubuntu 17.04. Now, I will tell you that I have this running virtually, but my intention is to install this on some test hardware as soon as I get through another video. All right, so Kubuntu 17.04 is available in 32-bit and 64-bit downloads. One of the other comparisons that I want to make between Kubuntu and KDE Neon is that KDE Neon is a very bare bones distribution that you build upon once you've installed it. That's not the case for Kubuntu. If you're looking for a more full-featured distribution, so that you're not spending a lot of time installing various things, then Kubuntu may be the direction you want to head. So one of the pre-installed bits of KDE software is the KDE PIM. Now it's known as Contact with a K, and it basically incorporates many of the KDE applications into one PIM suite, or Personal Information Manager suite. So it's going to encompass a summary similar to what old Outlook used to look like, and it'll incorporate your mail, your contacts, calendar, to-do list, any feeds that you might set up, a journal, as well as pop-up notes. Now, this particular suite is typically not going to be found on other KDE-focused distributions. It's something you can install, but this is the latest version. And back in the early days of KDE and the KDE PIM suite, I had high hopes for this particular suite, if you will, to replace Microsoft Outlook. And while it never fulfilled that on the the inclusion of everything flowing the way it should, because these are really just individual applications put into one suite, and I'll show you that in a minute. For the most part, it does pull it all together. It does allow you to work within one PIM suite and keep it all tied together. It's just that setting it up and getting all of your information to flow properly and everything is not as smooth and fluid, I think, as it should be. But for many of you out there, this might be a good solution to keep your contacts, calendar, and mail and everything all in one place. So I wanted to just point that out because this is something that you typically will not find installed again in, say, Antergos with their KDE desktop. You certainly wouldn't find that in KDE Neon because, again, it's bare bones, where this gives you a good mix of software. So I want to quickly go through some of the software that's going to be available. And to do that, I'm going to come out of the default application launcher that you see here that shows favorites, applications, computer, history, and then your options to log out, switch users, suspend, or shut down. So the way we're going to do that is what we call alternatives within KDE. So that gives you the option for different application launchers or menus. So you have the dashboard, which will take you full screen, similar to what you would see in the GNOME desktop, and then application menu. So I'm going to switch to application menu, and it's a very simple menu, but it's effective and easy to navigate. So under education, you're just going to see a couple of the usuals here, which is LibreOffice Math, and then under science would be math again. Under graphics, you've got a good selection with GwenView, which is an excellent app for viewing photos, that kind of thing, as well as LibreOffice Draw, ImageMagick, Ocular, which is great for PDFs, and then Scanlight, which is a really nice scan tool for scanning from your printer. Under Internet, you're going to see Firefox web browser as default, and then this is where we're going to get into where we see some of those individual K apps, which would be Kmail, Contact for printing out your list of contacts, or a theme editor for your list of contacts, and then you've got here PIM settings for the contact manager, or PIM suite, if you will. You'll also see KTorrent for torrent files, Conversation for adding in various chat apps and things like that. Under multimedia, you've got a good selection here, not too much. Amarok for audio, Dragon Player for videos, and K3B for burning DVDs and such. Under Office is going to be LibreOffice, and there you're also going to find more of the K apps. So you're going to have the K address book, Kmail, things like that, and then K organizer. But again, that's all back into that PIM suite. And it's kind of confusing, and I think that's why you'll see some of the other KDE focused distributions skip all of that. They don't install it, because what it is really it's a mishmash, if you will, of different K apps, that if you focused in on just that KPIM app or the PIM app itself, it would keep it much more cohesive, and you wouldn't have all these individual things, so it can become somewhat confusing. All right, enough of that. We'll move on to settings, and that's going to allow you to go into system settings, and then you've got a few other options here that I typically don't see. Input method. I'm not sure what the FCITX configuration is. We may take a look at that in a minute. And then some Java 8 policy tool stuff here. And then under System, you're going to find Discover, which is your access to installing other applications. So we'll certainly take a look at that. Dolphin, which is, in my opinion, the premier file manager within the Linux realm. Info Center, if we wanted to install this here, again, we're running virtually. A KDE Partition Manager, Console, which is your terminal there, KSysGuard, KWallet Manager. That's something that I typically turn off. The KWallet Manager for me is something that just kind of gets in my way. It always pops up and asks for your password for various applications. Then we have utilities, and here you're going to see Arc and Kate, KCalc, Cleopatra. Lots of K stuff here, of course, because this again is focused on KDE. Knotes, and then Spectacle, and Spectacle is an excellent screen capture, screen clip tool, and then Power Session. So while this isn't flooded with a giant list of applications, it's got enough there that once you've installed it, you've really got a full OS. That allows you multimedia capabilities, Office capabilities, things like that, and it's a good mix. And that really sets it apart from KDE Neon, which is completely bare bones. And I know many of you are saying, why do you keep talking about KDE Neon? Well, I keep talking about KDE Neon because I think that it moved up in the ranks rapidly, where Kubuntu kind of stayed static in user base. And now that there have been lots of updates here within 17.04, I think it brings the two closer into having more current versions, you know, like on the desktop and anything to do with the K apps and with Plasma. They're much more equal now with this latest release. But I want to also show you that there are differences in that this is going to be kind of ready to go, if you will, whereas KDE Neon, you're going to have to build up by adding the software that you want to make it into whatever it is that you need, whether that's bare bones or, you know, filled with software. All right, so let's move over now, and we'll go back to System, and we're going to go into Discover. Now, this is an area that has really improved over time. The first time I took a look at Discover, it was lacking a lot. There were missing icons, and things just weren't as smooth as they should be. So this is how you access your software. Think of it as your software store. You've got search, and then you've got categories under applications. You'll launch in, and then you'll have subcategories. So if we went into graphics, we're now going to have a list of applications that we can install with one click. And this is a smoother process than it used to be. I like that you have a description of what each of the applications is, and then, you know, if it's already installed, you can quickly see here that's installed. You could remove, one-click install. And then if you click in on the actual application, you'll see a little bit more in description, and you'll typically see a link to the home page if you wanted to dig in and find out more about the app. So nice improvement here. This is also an area where you would go for any updates that would give you a list here, as you see, of the various updates. So I think these improvements are going to go a long way to making the entire experience much better than what it was before as far as obtaining your software and getting all of your software set up. All right, let's go ahead and close that out. Okay, I want to focus on another area that really is stand out within KDE, and that's the Dolphin File Manager. Every time I use another distribution with a different desktop, I always miss Dolphin, and that's because Dolphin, in my opinion, again, is the best file manager, period, within Linux. It gives you lots of control. I'm not going to go into every aspect and feature here, but Dolphin gives you control over every aspect, much like the rest of KDE. You've got tons of settings in place to really configure this to work the way you would like. You know, right-click commands. So, for example, here, if you wanted to select folders, you get a little pop-up animation here that would allow you to select individual folders. And you'll see that they are now highlighted. We'll click off right-click commands for new window, new tab. Add favorite places, so you'll see that pop up here. It's just such a well done part of KDE. Zoom in on the icons, things like that, so we can get huge. All right, there we go. So that's a very nice part of KDE. Now, there's nothing been done different within Kubuntu as far as I can tell within KDE. So for the most part, what you're seeing here is going to be similar on other distributions. Where you will see differences, of course, is, you know, the base. It's based off of Ubuntu, and so there are a few tools and things that are in place. And again, additional software that you typically don't see, such as the KDE PIM suite. Another area that is worth taking a look at is under System Settings. And this is where you can go in and really configure just about everything within KDE, from your theming to your desktop behavior. And within the theming, they have really taken it to another level with the look and feel section and what they call looks. So looks would allow you to download new looks or other looks that would really change everything, including your icons, your wallpaper, your title bars, things like that. really dramatically change the overall look of the desktop itself with just a few clicks. It used to be a lot more complicated than it is now. You could change your cursor theme. So we have here Breeze Snow. So that's one aspect of just, a settings area that gives you a lot of control. The rest of KDE is also super configurable. You can really set it up to work in a way that is best for you, and it does it better, I think, than any of the other desktops available in GNU/Linux. You'll see here KDE Connect. That is an awesome part of KDE. It allows you to connect to your phone and sync things like files and images, as well as your text messages. You'll get pop-ups, so if your phone was sitting somewhere across the room and a text message comes in, it'll show up through KDE Connect, for example. So again, not going to get into all of the settings here because it would make for an extremely long video, but I just wanted you to see this area that gives you a tremendous amount of control. I'll point out just a quick couple of other things here, so along with the options. So again, in case you haven't really seen anything to do with KDE. Now, a lot of people say that KDE is heavy, and I think that's from people who have tried it in the past and really haven't tried the new KDE. It's so light feeling, and I'm going to say that compared to GNOME, it feels lighter than GNOME, and I have seen through various distributions where it uses less resources than GNOME, and in some cases Mate. All right, so some panel options here. So if you go right-click, go to Panel Options and then Panel Settings, and this will just give you an example of how flexible the desktop is. Now we have some options here. We can increase the height of the lower panel to, crazy tall. So you could adjust that height. And where that actually is nice is if you're vision impaired, by increasing this, you'll see that the clock and things like that also increase in size, and so that may be helpful to you. But some other things you can do is move from screen edge to screen edge. Perhaps you come from Ubuntu Unity and you like things on the left, so you have that option here, and we could adjust that out. And now you've got it there on the left. Now you can also pin applications to this panel. So if we go over here to Internet, for example, we could right-click and add to panel. And now we'll have that there. So you could set that up throughout all the way to the bottom here, or almost all the way to the bottom, and kind of have that same layout that you're used to in Unity, for example. So there's a multitude of things that you could do. If you right-click, you've got lots of options. You can add widgets. Now, widgets is an area that used to be a big problem for KDE, and so far, the new KDE, I'm going to call it, because we're approaching 5.10 here soon, the widgets have been really stable, or at least the widgets that I use, which is somewhat limited. I don't use a lot of the widgets, but you may find mixed results, but so far I think they're much more stable. So you could add a clock, for example. You can scale that clock. And I know many of you who have seen and know KDE are saying, okay, really, you're going to go through all this? Yes, I am, because if you're someone brand new to KDE, maybe you haven't ever seen these features before. So I think it's worth taking the time to go through it. So you could scale that clock up and down, so on and so forth. So overall, I think, again, just to sum this up, I think it's going to be something I look forward to trying again and really spending some time with, at least on hardware, let's say, to see how stable it is and see what the experience is like. I know virtually here it seems to be running fairly well. So, all right, well, check it out and let me know what you think. That's it for now. Thanks for watching.